Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Spiritually Speaking. I have another beautiful guest with me today. This is a fascinating conversation. I know it already, and it hasn't even started yet in this podcast. So, welcome, Britt. I'm so excited to have you here today. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for the invitation. I'm looking forward to this.
Me too. I was so excited. I saw you as we discussed in the pre-chat on Michael Andre Ford's Angel podcast that he does. And I was like, oh, I really want to talk to her. I felt like there was so much about you that I would love to know more about. So I thought I'd ask you, and you graciously said yes. So I'm so excited. So tell us what it is that you do.
Well, basically, I'm a writer. I have been since the age of 8. I am fascinated with how words can convey things and how you can learn through them. When I was 8, I wrote my first novel. And then I decided, no, I'm not into fake stories. I want the real deal. And I got into nonfiction writing and research and things like that that really could feed my need for learning more and more all the time. And that's what I love to do. I'm perfectly content with a notebook and a pen or a computer, and whatever's happening in my head, it's jotting down somewhere, and then it becomes something else. Most of the time, I write for myself because it is about learning about your exterior world so you can learn about your interior world. The more I read, the more I question and dig into things, the more I learn about me. And that is the value of what I do personally. I love to help new authors that are trying to get started from the standpoint of they've got a wonderful experience that happened to them. They want to convey it, but they don't quite know how. And so I ghostwrite for a lot of different people and work with the people that have created a book, but it might need some work. I come in as an editor quite often and help them. I love the idea of being able to question, to explore. We limit ourselves in so many ways that we have a tendency to pull back and not have the opportunity to really explore ourselves and everything around us. That's a problem to me because there's so much there. And it's not just the physical world we see, but it's the inner world, the heart, the spirit, how that works, and all the things we don't see that we know exist.
Hmm.
At some point, people have an experience where they know that spirits exist. Maybe they've had a sighting of a UFO, a UAP, whatever you want to call it. They have that, but what do they do with that? How do they process it? And that teaches me about not only them, but myself too.
Right, right. That's so interesting. And I agree with you. There's so much more than what we see. And I've had that
Yes.
experience since I was a small child. I've been able to see spirit. So, and I actually
Uh-huh.
briefly mentioned to you that I've had extraterrestrial. I call them universal beings because I don't really like the other
There
terms
you go.
that well. So I call them universal beings. It just sounds nicer to me. But I've had
Yes.
an experience when I was a kid too, as and some strange, lots of strange things since then. Because I'm very open to
Mhm.
it, so I experience a lot of things. So I love that you are open to that as well. What is your favorite thing to investigate so that you can write about it?
Oh my gosh. Do I have to say this since we're talking about UFOs? 45 years ago, well, actually longer than that, we got involved in an investigation. My background is also in investigating, as was my husband's.
Nice.
And we did an investigation on a contact case, a physical face-to-face contact
Wow.
between a man named Billy Meyer and a group of Pleiadians from the Pleiades star system. And it was fascinating to me because this was a contact that went on for a number of years, is still going on today. It began in 1975. So that to me just really, wow. Okay, I've heard of sightings. I knew of Betty and Barney Hill. My dad was a rocket scientist, literally worked on the early missile systems. I had heard the stories from the engineers, so I knew there were things out there we didn't understand. But this case provided physical evidence. It had photographs and movie footage, dozens and dozens of witnesses. It had audio recordings. It had metal samples of the craft itself. It was just almost overwhelming. So we did an investigation and we hit a point where we said, with the technology we have today, we can't go any further. So let's create a book, put it out there, let people make their own decisions, which we did. Well, we just re-released that book and its sister book. So UFO Contact from the Pleiades, Volume 1 and Volume 2 is 45 years old and still as relevant today as it was then, which is fascinating because
Yeah.
it learned so much from that, not just on the physical evidence side, but also what happened with the messages that the Palladians were giving Billy Meyer were so wonderful because it was about how to develop your spirit,
Yeah.
how to rely on your intuition, how to know, and we all know right from wrong.
Hmm.
We don't need to be constantly told this is right or that is wrong. We know it in our heart, but we've got to make that connection to our heart. So all of this merging together in this one UFO case was just um, it's something that has kept my attention for all of these years, not just that case, but all of the things happening in that realm. Once you're into UFOs, you're never out. It's like you walk through a portal into nothingness. It's just one question after another.
It is. It is. I would love that. I was actually just saying to a friend of mine on the phone earlier, I said, I want contact. Like, I want that experience so bad in a conscious way, that I can
Yes.
taste it. Like, I've had, different experiences and seen different things in the sky and things like that. But as far as
Right.
that, contact like he had, been able to stand there and actually talk to them, like, I just, man,
Oh, wouldn't that be great?
it would
I
be so
mean,
exciting.
yeah, I have a list of questions. Unfortunately, over these numerous years, I just keep adding to them. It's more and
Yeah.
more and more. But it's something that they look at us as their little brothers and sisters, and we need to sort of own that respect for ourselves and that there are other people out there. And we haven't gotten there yet. We're getting there, but we're not there yet. We're a little slow in the uptake sometimes. And that's okay because everybody has to grow at their own rate.
Yeah. Yeah, we are stubborn. How do you feel like they choose people? Since you've investigated this quite a bit, how do you feel like they choose humans to come and talk to and interact with in that way?
Well, in Billy Meyer's case, they studied him for 10 years because their intent was to present enough evidence to support the fact that they are here.
Hmm.
They needed somebody that could be strong enough to do that. A lot of, excuse me, a lot of people didn't live up to that.
Hmm.
They were afraid of being judged, afraid of being viewed as insane, things like that. So they studied Billy for 10 years, then decided to make the face to face contact and provide the physical evidence. But the interesting thing is, so many contacts are happening around the world. And many of them, they don't study that long, but they really check the individual out before they make contact to make certain that they're capable mentally of handling the reality that, oh my gosh, there is another realm out there that we can talk to, that we
Yeah.
can deal with, and that we can learn from. So, yes, it's always watching over and then making the contact.
Yeah. It's so interesting. And I know they come forward and make contact in many different kinds of ways too. Like my
Mm-hmm.
first experience, is the typical dream scenario where I felt like, because I was a child, I was only maybe
Mm-hmm.
7 or 8 or something like that when it happened, and I felt like I
Uh-huh.
was dreaming, but it was so real to me that I tell the experience. We lived in this upstairs apartment on the end, and it was on MacDill Air Force Base which I've since found out that a lot of things have happened on MacDill Air Force Base. And,
Ah,
and, I was in my first perspective is almost like from looking at it from outside myself, like I saw myself being
uh-huh,
taken out of the apartment. And then once I was outside the apartment, my perspective changed. And then I was
uh-huh,
looking at this little, and it was a small spacecraft that was kind of shaped like two triangles, squished down triangles stuck on top of each other, but they were kind of rounded on the
right.
top. You know what I mean? And then the
I
door
do.
opened from like the middle down, and
Uh-huh,
then I could see inside of it, and it was like hovering right on the side of the staircase, you know, it was hovering like right there. And then the next thing
mm-hmm.
I knew, I was in the spacecraft and I was laying on a table and they were doing things to me. And I don't remember what they looked like. So I
Wow.
can't sit here and tell you that they were whatever, whatever, because I really truly don't remember. The thing that
Right.
I do remember that stands out more than anything is they did something to my left leg on the
Mm.
interior portion of my legs, somewhere about halfway between my knee and my ankle. And it hurt
Uh-huh.
really, really bad. Whatever they did really hurt. And I remember waking up the next morning and looking at my leg to see if there was a mark on it because I felt like there
Right.
had to be a mark on it as bad as it hurt, but there was no mark. And that's all I
Did the
remember of
leg
that.
continue to hurt?
It did
Did your
not,
leg
no.
continue? No?
Mm-mm, no. When
Hmm.
I woke up and I
Interesting.
looked at it, it didn't hurt. It hurt for a while after I went back to, you know, like I was back in my bed. I remember thinking like
Right.
in my sleep, it was really hurting. But when I got up the next day and looked at it, there was nothing there and it didn't hurt.
Wow. What was the reaction when you were taken on board? What did you feel?
I felt curious as to what they were doing to
Uh,
me. I don't remember feeling frightened, but then again,
Right.
I've never felt frightened of anything that I've seen. You know, when
Yeah.
I started seeing spirit, the first one I remember seeing was when I was about four, and I was never afraid. I was always
Uh-huh.
very curious, but never afraid. So I don't know
Yeah.
if that was just kind of a tie-in to, you know, the regular spirits that you see, and just thinking,
Yeah.
oh, what are they doing?
I love that though, because there are so many people out there that have similar experiences as children. They actually feel themselves leaving their bed and then they see it and then they see the object and they're on board the object. And there isn't a reaction of fear. There's a reaction of what is going on?
Yeah,
What's happening here? And that's sort of how it just sits with them. And when they come back, I know several that have had issues of they wanted to take fluids, body fluids, blood, things like that. And then they were delivered back into their room. But there's also many that they just sat and looked at. And the ETs sat and looked at the kids. And the kids just sort of felt like, oh, okay, well, this is just a different looking person.
yeah,
And they didn't react to it from the standpoint of, I've got to be afraid. I think that's so important. We are a culture steeped in fear,
hmm,
and we really need to step out of that. We
yeah,
need to be more receptive to things we don't understand. Um, if we don't learn about them, we can't change them. We
yeah,
can't be there for ourselves to help ourselves through an issue that creates fear. And yes, there are going to be things that happen in life that naturally you're going to be fearful of. But so many things are just, I hate to use the word, but it's propaganda to be afraid. And
oh
we
yeah,
don't need to be afraid. Yeah.
yeah. I agree with you 100%. And I say that quite often on my podcast episodes because I don't feel like fear accomplishes anything. It
No.
just keeps us from moving forward, you know, but we're such a fear-driven society. It's insane to me how afraid of everything we are.
Yeah,
Even the
we
good
are.
stuff. We're afraid of the good stuff.
Yes.
Like we think, oh, we're afraid we won't succeed, so we don't do something. But really, we're more afraid that we will succeed because then what?
Yeah.
It's totally
Yeah, then you got
different.
another mountain to climb.
Yeah.
It is so strange, but we are indoctrinated with fear as youngsters. We're told not to believe, we're told to be closed up, and we carry that throughout life. And our belief structures are limited as children as to what you can and can't believe. I had experiences as a kid where I had what my parents called an imaginary cowboy. And he was with me all the time. I made them set a place at the table for him. I wouldn't eat unless he did. So it was that kind of thing. And it was something that later on in life came in very handy
Hmm.
because he would show up in my dreams every time I got into a space that could cause me harm. He was there telling me, this is going to happen and this is what you have to do.
Oh.
So I never had the experience of uh, really, really doing any damage to me or anything else. Um, so, yes, to me, those things were very real. And
Hmm.
I was fortunate that I had a mother that was extremely intuitive, very psychic, believed these things. She gave me, when I was 9 years old, 8 or 9, she gave me Ruth Montgomery's books and
I'm not
said,
familiar
sit
with
down and
her.
read. Oh, she was one of the original psychics
Oh,
and
okay.
really got into it. And following Ruth's books, I got Rudolf Steiner. So, I mean, my mom wanted me to expand and explore all the things that were out there. And my dad was a very left brain scientist. So I had a great mix growing up, best of both worlds. Um, and I was told I could do anything I wanted to do and to never be afraid because I was always okay if I stayed connected to myself.
Yeah,
That's a big deal. And today, people don't have that interconnection. Many of them don't.
many don't.
Many more of them are beginning to,
Yes.
but you really have to do some work to get to the connection to your spirit, to the divine, to your heart.
Mhm.
Let that consciousness speak through you rather than your brain. I
Right.
always say when you think with your head, you get in trouble. Think with your heart and yeah.
Yes. It's so true too. It really is. And I love that you had that upbringing where your parents were just so supportive. I mean, your dad gave you kind of the
Right.
grounded scientific side of things and but
Definitely.
your mom was like, "Yes, explore all this stuff." I didn't
Yep.
have that and I often wonder what my life would be like if I had had that because I was raised in a really religious home, so that was really taboo. And I love that you had a cowboy. And what's so interesting about that is I had a purple horse. I don't remember the
Oh, there
purple
you go.
horse, but my mom
Uh-huh.
told me that I had an imaginary friend that was a purple horse. So I find that pretty fascinating. And I would love for him to come back for a visit, but I haven't seen him.
Absolutely. I haven't put myself in danger in a long time. I've kind of learned the difference of where the edge is that I can walk on. But yeah, he was always there when I was really facing something where I could have been seriously injured or killed.
Wow,
He'd show up the night before and take me through it. So it was a wonderful gift, a
that's
truly
amazing.
wonderful gift.
So do you feel
And
like he's
it's
like a guide ancestor type of person, or do you feel like he may be a universal being that's been guiding you?
I no, I think he's more of a spirit guide.
Hmm.
That he was definitely there in that realm. Um, I've never had a contact with a
No?
universal being. I love your term, by the way. It's brilliant.
Thank you.
But I feel connected to them somehow. They have their own kind of magic that many times I'll be talking or my husband Lee and I would be driving and we'd be talking about them and wondering and asking a question and we get a shooting star. And we go, oh, wow, that's interesting, and then it'd happen again. All of these little things that sort of add up. We came home one night, we had been working with Nippon Television, and we had gone to dinner with the crew, and we came back to the house. And at that point, we lived in Phoenix, and the house was totally closed up. It was the middle of summer, it was 118 degrees. We
Wow.
walked in, and there was a white dove sitting in the middle of the floor, not injured, not hurt in any way, had no way to get into the house. I went over and picked it up. It was so calm and peaceful. Its little heart wasn't pounding or anything. And I said, "What are you doing here?" And it hit us both at the same time. Oh my gosh, the Pleiadians are called the Seven Sisters, the Doves of Peace. And it
Wow.
was like, oh my. So we took the dove outside and we said, "Be happy." And it flew off. But how
Wow.
it got in the house, we have no idea. And it was just like it was a messenger popping in to say, "Got it. It's okay." And this was just as we were getting into the investigation heavily. Yeah.
That is so amazing. I love that story. I love stories like that. It's so cool. I just had a weird
Yeah.
thing happen. I told my friend about it this morning and I haven't shared it with too many people and definitely haven't shared it in public yet until now. But we
Hmm.
just had that full moon with the
Right.
partial eclipse. And then a couple days later, I was outside, and I've always been fascinated by daytime moons because it doesn't make
Uh-huh.
sense to me that the moon would be out during the day. It seems
Mm.
counterintuitive that that would be a thing. So I was standing on the front porch and I'm looking at the moon, and it was pretty high up still. And all of a sudden, I noticed there were three, like from the 9 o'clock to the 6 o'clock position, there were
Uh-huh.
three spheres that looked like tiny little moons. They were a lot smaller than the moon, but they were very distinct. And at first I thought they were clouds, and I was like, but they're perfectly round. That doesn't make sense. That so I grabbed my phone and I took a picture, but it doesn't, I don't have a great camera on my phone. But if you look at it
Uh-huh.
closely, you can see the three dots that are there.
Wow.
And I'm this type of person, like I'll talk to them. So I'm like, I
Yeah.
see you. I see you, and I see you seeing that I see you. And I'm looking at you right now. I'm watching you. And as I'm looking, I focused on the top orb first more intently than the
Uh,
other ones. And I'm just talking to it the whole time. And
good.
slowly, like someone turned down a dimmer switch, it just dimmed and dimmed and dimmed until it wasn't there anymore. And then the same thing happened with the second one and then the third one. And I
Right.
was like, I
Wow.
don't know what that was, but it was really interesting and cool. And I wonder what it was.
Uh-huh. I know we've spent a lot of time in Mexico researching all the UFO sightings down there since 1991 and the solar eclipse there. Amazing stuff going on. I mean, and the kids are so open to it. I love it
Yeah.
because they'll see these things and they'll sit and they'll have that kind of communication back and forth with them. Okay, if you're hearing me, if you're paying attention to me, I want you to move to the right or move to the left, and it does it. And they've got it on camera as they're speaking to it. This object is moving and you have things in the foreground that you can tell the object move,
Yeah.
not the camera. And so it's intriguing that they're setting up communication that way. But more and more people are becoming comfortable with the topic of UFOs and UAPs. And the government coming out with their tic tac footage from the Navy and all of that has helped tremendously. But that's not where we should focus our attention because we don't need the government to tell us something is real to believe it's real.
I agree.
We need our heart to tell us it's real, to understand it's real. Yeah.
Yeah. So are you familiar with the get together? It's called GISIC. They just actually had it. It just finished this past weekend, actually. It's the Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection. Are you
No, I'm not.
No, they just had it was their third year, and it's set up by
Uh-huh.
Danny Henderson, and she has
Uh-huh.
speakers there like Dr. Michael Salla and Elena Danan and Tony Rodriguez and Alex Collier and a bunch of other different people
Right.
too. I was really hoping to get to go this year, but I didn't get to go.
Oh, Dr. Saul is wonderful. He has done remarkable research. He's such an informed man and just a wealth of knowledge. And I hope that we have an opportunity at some point. I mean, I've known him for years, but I hope that the world out there has an opportunity to really hear the things he has to say because he is brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, he really is. He's very, and he seems like he's just a really nice guy too, from what he just seems
So
really
normal.
sweet.
He's very, very normal. Yeah. He's a good guy. There are so many people that are interested in this subject, have a great scientific background, like Dr. Sala, um, but don't really come forward with their knowledge.
Yeah,
It's happening more and more that they are, but there's still so many there. I know the scientists, many of the scientists we worked with, we had to swear we would never use their name. Some of them were great, and they said, "Oh, yeah, you can say I said this," which was wonderful because they did nothing but add credibility to something that was pretty remarkable, especially 45 years ago.
yeah,
So I really hope that more and more of these scientists will step up and connect with people, and whether it's through UFO groups or meeting groups or spiritual groups, really delve into the information that they want to look at and they want to share with others. It's so important, especially right now.
I agree.
We're kind of at a a brink. I won't call it a break point, a brink of
Yeah.
making decisions as to what happens to us.
Hmm.
Because we've managed to let ourselves get so divided.
Mm.
The Lakota have a wonderful saying, we are all related.
Yeah.
That is so true. But
Mm.
we lose that connection with one another when we fight over silly things and lose the ability to communicate. If you can communicate with someone, and they can communicate with you. You can both learn from it.
Right.
But if you're taking my way is the only way, nobody learns anything. We just get stuck. And we're kind of in that stuck mode right now. We're talking about going into space. We're talking about setting up bases on Mars.
Yeah.
It's not just imagination at this point. They're really working towards it. And we have to have respect for those other beings out there. But
Yeah.
we can't really do that until we recognize they exist.
Yes.
That's a big deal, I think. But
Yeah.
we're moving in that direction. So, do we get over our inability to communicate and start learning to share so we can all learn? Do we start respecting what's out there, those living out there, not necessarily in the physical realm, but those out there on all the realms? And respect each other and respect ourselves. And I think it has to start with respect of self first and working with heart, spirit, for self, and then expanding it and connecting with as many as you can on that level.
Yes. I agree. I agree 100%. It's so important. And we have
Yeah.
become so divided and over the dumbest things. Like it's
Yeah.
stuff that's just not even important at all,
That's
most of
right.
it. I mean, there are some bigger issues, I guess, but if, you can't solve the problem from the perspective of the problem.
That's
And
right.
so just
No,
being
and
willing
it
to,
takes that getting together and getting ideas out there rather than saying, oh, you're wrong and I'm right type of thing.
yes,
That never works.
no,
You've got to put consciousness out there from the standpoint of letting it come through the heart and letting it resonate with all these different things. Everybody do that. Then you come up with solutions. Then
yes,
you come up with ideas that can change the world. But if we keep fighting and acting like everybody else is the bad guy, we're not going to get anywhere. And to me, it's kind of spiritually devastating that we don't let ourselves have that openness we need with
mhm,
each other so we can be there for each other and ourselves.
yes. It's so true. It's so true. I just said to my friend this morning because she's put together, a donation of food and things like that to help some of the
Mhm.
families in our immediate area that are still without power and things like that. So they don't have,
Right.
they've lost the food that they did have, or many different factors go into that. And I told her, I said,
Right.
I love this so much, I said, but on one level, it really makes me sad because we should be doing this all the time. We should be helping each other all the
That's right.
time. Why do we have to wait until a catastrophe happens to extend
Exactly.
basic human kindness to another person?
Hmm.
I don't
You're
understand
so
it.
right. No, it's something we should be doing on a constant, persistent level.
Hmm.
And why we don't is beyond me.
Yeah.
I mean, if you see someone in harm's way, don't you want them to get out of the way? If you see someone that is really down, I'm not talking panhandlers and things like that. I'm talking about people that really have nothing and really need help. Don't you want to help them? We should all be that way.
Yeah.
We should do it on a daily basis with each other, with people you know and people you don't.
Yeah. And it comes from, like
Yeah.
you said, living from the heart chakra. And I firmly believe that. And I actually just did another video in my other video series about living from the heart chakra because if we live from
Good.
here with ourselves first, because we have to love ourselves. And then when we can stand in our highest and best self, that ripples out to everyone
Yeah,
else because that love just grows, it
exactly.
just does. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. My dad used to tell me, if you don't love yourself, you can't love anybody else because you never know the meaning of love.
Yeah.
And I think he's right. That's another thing as society, we've attached love to anything and everything.
Yeah.
And now its meaning is so watered down. Its truth is sort of cloaked in all of this other stuff
Mm.
that doesn't have a value and importance. That getting to the core of what love is for self and for others is really important.
Yes. I agree 100%. So let's go back to the scientists for a moment that you say you wish would come forward and lend even more credibility. What do you feel like holds them back? Do you feel like it's like you said previously, the fear of being seen? Or, I mean, because we're getting more open about it now. It's being more widely accepted, and we have a lot more proof than we've ever had, ever before.
Yes.
So, what do you think keeps holding them back from just telling what they know?
Judgment of their peers still.
Wow.
Um, some of them are willing to come out, and that's great, but we need more.
Hmm.
We and they won't make a definitive statement on it. They can look at a photograph and say, "Oh, I don't know what this is, but it's not something that I could create," which is what they did with us. But that's as far as they could go. They are concerned that their peers will judge them. There have been some that have been phenomenal. Marcel Vogel, David Froning, um, Robert Post, Eric Eliason, Dr. Michael Malin down at U of A. These people worked with us. They were fabulous. They were open, they were receptive. But then you take it to a colleague, and that colleague kind of looks at you a little wacky. They don't want to talk about it anymore. So that's the problem, is you've got, again, that division, that polarity of those that are curious enough to want to proceed and those that don't want to touch it because it's such a frightening thing. Not necessarily really fear oriented, but frightening from the standpoint of what could happen to their job,
Hmm.
what could happen to the way their peers view them. So they shy away from it. And
Mm.
that I think is still the biggest reason. But more and more, they're coming out and they're talking and they're saying, we don't know what this is, but it's there. And
Hmm.
that's what it's going to take. Yeah.
Why do you think they just keep saying we don't know what it is? Because I mean, like, there's a part of me that's like, okay, I get it. You don't really know what it is. But then there's a part of me that calls shenanigans on that because it's a cop out
Yeah.
statement to me. We don't know what it is. Yes, you do. Like, I just want to say, yes, you do. Just say it. What do you think they say that? It's such a,
I think it's an easy cop out. I really do. It's okay. I didn't see it myself, so I can't tell you what it is. It's somebody else took this photograph, this movie footage, had this experience. I don't know what that was. They do. It's kind of handing off the responsibility to
Yeah.
someone else. And that's kind of the world we live in, actually.
Yeah.
If you don't have the experience yourself, then you don't really make a judgment and you don't feel entitled to make a judgment, enlightened enough to make a judgment. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. It's, and I guess I look at that a little bit differently because I depend on my soul to tell me
Hmm.
if it's true because you feel it in your body. Because I've listened to so many podcasts and seen so many different videos and stuff, and some of them I'll just turn off because I'm like, that is so much crap. That is whatever. You know what I mean? And then there's some of them like, wow, that is so cool. Or I'll listen to other people tell their stories and think that is an absolutely amazing experience. And they didn't show me a picture or
Right.
anything. They just told me the story that they had, but it felt true to me when I heard it. But
Yeah.
I understand not everybody is going to accept it in that way, but it's fascinating to me how different people react.
Yeah. It definitely. Well, it's like you were talking about Michael Ford in his podcast. I know when I said I was going to do it, I had some friends say, "Are you crazy?" Well, no. I mean, why should I want to hide anything about me?
Right.
And if I am talking to Michael and he's bringing these energies through, I need to be respectful of them. That's a gift I don't have that he can present to me.
Yeah.
We had great sessions. I mean, he is just such a love and so talented
Yeah.
because he does bring it through. And if you open your heart and open your consciousness, some people will call it imagination. That's perfectly fine.
Mhm.
That's all part of creational energy. So
It
if
all
you're
started
tapping into
there.
that, you're opening up to everything. And
Yes.
if you see things, you see them.
Yeah.
They are something relevant to you. You need to be paying attention to them. He was really wonderful, and he's
Mm.
so gifted in just setting things down and saying, this is what this is, this is what this is. What do you see? He doesn't tell you, now you're going to see this, this, and this. He lets you find it. That's great as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's something when you kind of explore the side of spirituality and what it means to you, it can be painful. And
Hmm.
especially for people that have gone through a very staunch religious doctrine, um, looking at, wow, there might be other things out there that exist rather than this narrow path I've been on.
Mm. Yeah.
And sometimes that can be really tumultuous, painful, emotional. And then you go, wow, it's all together. It's all interrelated.
Yeah.
And that connection to creation is something we don't want to ever lose. We want to understand deeper and deeper every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. And I do like I do inner work like every day. Every day I'm doing inner work and like I told my Steve the other day, I'm like, it's exhausting some days. It really is
It is.
because that energy is intense when you have these epiphanies about yourself and like wow, they talk about ascension symptoms and I call them energy integrations. It can be really, really
Mhm.
intense sometimes and it can wipe you out. It's
Yeah.
exhausting some days.
And then recognizing something in yourself that you go, oh boy, I don't want that to be part of me.
Yeah.
And what do you do with it? How do you get it out of your system, your thought process, your consciousness? It's, yeah, that can be not only exhausting, but painful because
It,
you then start looking at where did it come from? Why is it there? Um, and I've used the word several times, judgment during
yes.
our discussion. But judgment is a big problem all of us have.
Yeah.
And we are ingrained with it from the time we can talk. We're taught, judge this, judge that. Well, judgment to me has now taken a different tone. It's not me judging. It's the judgment is allowing the other energy to come through.
Right.
And by that judgment, then I'm learning from it. And that's the value for me.
Absolutely. And even though it
Yeah,
is exhausting, I would like to say that it's so worth it. It's so worth
absolutely.
the effort and the energy you put towards it. And
Yes.
also, the good news is that as you keep doing it, it gets easier. It gets faster.
Hmm.
These processes don't take so long. And one of the things I've noticed here just actually pretty recently with myself is it's almost like even though I'm going through this, because it doesn't always feel good in the moment, we don't like to feel those emotions of like, holy crap, that thing about myself, I really need to get that out of there.
Yeah.
But it's like the higher self is looking down and going, even though you feel like crap right now, take a look at all of these beautiful things that are still going on while you're going through this thing. And that has
Yeah.
been amazing to me.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I have a friend who is perpetually unhappy.
Mm,
And I feel like it's my goal to help her find something to be happy about every day.
yeah,
So I finally got her to looking at sunrises and sunsets. And
I
I
know.
said, how can you possibly look at that and not feel connected to something greater?
Yeah.
And when you hit that connection, then you can start really working through things.
Mhm.
And it's much easier, much more comfortable. She's seeing now what caused her to have that perpetual negative spin on life. And I just asked her, why do you want to play in that side of the world? Come out in the light and play.
Yeah.
There's too much there. Nature around you, the people around you, not the stuff, not the trappings, the real things. Those are the things that open yourself to, and you're going to have a great day.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. And it's allowing ourselves to find that connection because it's so we're so inundated with the noise,
Hmm.
and that's when I stopped watching the news ages and ages ago. But I think, we're getting hit with that from so many different directions, this negative stuff. And there's so much
Right.
beauty out there. There's so much beauty out
Hmm.
there too. There's just as much, if not more, beauty. It's just not as noisy. So it doesn't get as much attention.
Yes, absolutely. I consider myself a real tree hugger. Not so much the environmentalist. I do believe Mother Nature does her own thing, but I love to hug a tree. And
Yeah.
where I live, we have these big, huge pine trees that smell like vanilla.
Oh,
And
wow.
you go up and sit underneath it. It's just, there's nothing better. So I'm sitting in the dirt, grounding in soil, grounding with Mother, feeling the energy of this massive tree and taking in the fragrance too. What else is there? I mean, that's life.
That's amazing. What kind of trees have the smell of vanilla? That's amazing.
Ponderosa pines.
Really?
Yeah, they have a red colored bark, brownish red, and they're just, certain times a year, it is like walking into a vanilla factory. It's just so beautiful.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever noticed this connection. You feel pretty connected to the Ponderosa pine, and you have a cowboy guide that
Yeah.
just that just hit me.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
true.
cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. So,
We will have to get the cowboy and the purple pony together to have a conversation.
yeah, yeah, I thought it was pretty cool that I had the purple horse too, and you have the cowboy.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's so interesting. Do you know his name? Did he ever tell you his name
No, he was just always my cowboy.
there? And do you still
Yeah.
see him?
I haven't for a long time, but I haven't, like I said, put myself in serious danger. I mean, I've been in the jungles and things like that, but never in a situation where I could really do damage. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's
So no,
good.
I got older and wiser, thought things through a little better, and yeah. So
It's
I don't
funny how
have
that
those problems
happens.
so much. Yeah.
So, would you share
Especially
with
after
us one of
kids.
your favorite stories from your investigating?
Oh wow. Um, yeah, a fun one. It was in Mexico, and we were in a city called Atlisco. It's 100,000 people. The mayor was wonderful. He welcomed us. We went in, sat down, interviewed him. I said, "Are you afraid? I mean, you're talking about UFOs all over the place here. Are you afraid?" "Why would I be afraid? They would have done something to us ages ago if I needed to be afraid." I said, "Okay, that makes sense." And then he says, "I want you to go to a place called the Cita Blanca. It's right outside town. Go tonight." We did. It's a little hill. You climb the hill, you sit there, and you wait for UFOs. But we weren't alone. The entire village, city of Atlisco, all goes up to this hill. They haul grandma and grandpa up the hill, beer coolers, the kids. Everybody sits on the hill waiting for UFOs to come in.
Oh,
Inevitably, they show up and they'll do zigzags around each other, then loop to loops, make right angle turns, go straight up, turn around, come straight down, spot on, and then vanish. I mean, it was, and not just one shape. It wasn't like one typical UFO craft, but there were delta wing shapes. There were, and they were doing this too. They were making right angle turns and straight up and then off to the side. And it was really something to behold. So whenever we get to Mexico, we go to Atlisco and sit up on the hill and watch UFOs.
and you still see them
It's
every
really,
time you go?
yeah, they have been there every time we have been there, and we worked with Sightings, which was a show on Fox, I think it was, and we took the Fox crew down there. They got footage. Took several Japanese crews in. They got footage. Um, in Mexico, it's a completely different attitude. When it comes to UFOs, it's almost like it's a miracle that is expected. So
Wow.
they're not afraid of them. They relish them. And
Yeah.
there was one, and this is going back to like 93, it was January 1st. Reforma, which is the longest boulevard that goes through Mexico City, there were hundreds of UFOs in the sky.
Wow.
People stopped their cars, got out, laid on the hood, and watched these things. That night, it was on the 6 o'clock news, 10 o'clock news. It was front page on the newspapers the next morning.
Wow.
Nobody was upset about it. They all said, "Wow, we don't know what they are, but this is what we're doing." You have cops standing there pointing at them. It was really quite remarkable. So
That's,
it's a different attitude, but they're
yeah.
not so cloaked in fear as we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, isn't it? Like they feel that fear and it kind
Yeah.
of repels them away, huh? It almost sounds like.
Yeah, I think that's very, very true because I know there's different groups that meet. There's a group at Shasta, there's one in Washington, and one in Oregon that I'm very familiar with, where people get together and they call these craft in and they're not afraid and they have some form of communication happening. I think that's fabulous. In Mexico, they see a UFO and they go, "Oh, yeah, 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 well, I've seen those." It's just an everyday occurrence. They kind of stop paying attention to it after a while.
Oh, so do they communicate with them? Do they like talk to them and communicate with the beings themselves or just see the craft?
No, some of them actually, like I said, go through the communication process. If you're hearing me, go to the left, go to the right, go straight up. They'll get a response that
Right.
way. Some of them actually feel they're getting telepathic communication. So that makes a difference too. And I know a lot of communication with extraterrestrials, universal beings, as you say. I love that. Um, it is telepathic, but it's not telepathy like many people think of the thought form in the mind. It is the thought form in the heart. They actually feel the word through their being, and
Yeah.
it makes a difference that way.
Yeah, that's so interesting. God, I love that. I want to get a
Yeah.
group of people together now. And because I'm like, I had a friend of mine go, Dee, she goes, if you walked out into your backyard and there were extraterrestrials, that's what she called them at the time. If they were in your
uh,
backyard, she goes, you wouldn't be afraid. And I'm like, no. And she goes,
yeah.
I don't even know why I asked you that, she said.
But
And I,
if you don't approach something with fear, you're not attracting that energy. There are energies that you do need to keep away from.
sure.
It's as simple as, yeah, there's good and there's bad. We are a polarized world, polarity being positive, negative.
Yes,
But if you don't have the fear in your heart, questioning, you're not going to attract the experience.
right. I agree with you 100%. And I say that to people in the world of spirituality where we're seeing and communicating with our loved ones on the other side. And they're like, aren't you afraid of attracting a demon or something like that? And like, okay, so here's your vibration, right? You're way up here
Yeah.
communicating in love and light. And this, it's like
Uh,
being in a plane and thinking you're going to get hit by a car. It's not going to happen.
exactly. That's a great analogy. Wonderful. Yeah, you're in a plane going to get hit by a car. That's very true. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. And I love it. I even asked Steve, I'm like, when they come to take me for a ride in their spaceship, do you want to go with me? And he goes, and he doesn't like to fly, right? He doesn't like to fly. So
Uh,
he immediately goes, heck yeah, I'll go with you. And I go, but you hate flying. He goes, that's a human created aircraft, D. He goes,
there you go.
these are created by someone who actually knows what they're doing. They have that technology.
I love
He
it.
goes, I'll go
Yeah.
with you. I said, fantastic. So we're just waiting
That,
for our ride
yeah.
now.
I know so many people that are just saying, come on, hurry up and get down here, get me out of here. But we have to remember we're here for a reason.
Yeah. And
You
I
know,
don't want
all of
to,
the lessons.
yes. And I don't want to escape the human experience. I just want that in addition to having the human
Me too.
experience because
Me too.
I work,
I'll
I
have
work,
another life where I can go play there. But right now
yes.
I want to play in this life. Yeah.
Yes, because I had a long and arduous journey learning to love my human self, because I didn't think it was spiritual. I felt like it was limiting. Some people are very grounded earth spirits. I've never felt that way. I've always wanted to
Uh,
be out there playing around and doing all the things because I felt like it wasn't limited. I felt like my human body was cumbersome and heavy you know and
uh,
so I had to make friends with my human self, and now I'm doing a lot better with that, but still it's like all that fun. They're
yeah,
having so much
absolutely.
fun. They get to think something and then they're there, and it's really cool. But I realize that I'm here for a reason on this planet, and I'm meant to do some amazing things and help some incredible souls through the work that I do. So I'm very happy and grateful for that now, where before I was like, just why do I have to open a door and walk and take a
Yeah.
car? I should be able to just think it and be there, but it's okay. It's
It's
that
wonderful that
experience.
you have that recognition, though, that you have a purpose and you can help others find theirs because you do know what yours is.
Yes.
And that's really a gift.
Yeah, I feel very blessed, and it's just getting started, and I know that this is just the
Uh-huh.
beginning. In so many ways, this is just the beginning for me. So, but I do feel very blessed, and I'm so excited for you that you had this incredible journey through the investigative. So, and okay, so let's go back to you as an 8-year-old because you said you
Okay.
kind of ditched that and went to the real side of things. What was
Right.
your first novel, which is mind-boggling at 8 years old? What was that about?
It was, and I don't know why, but it was kind of a spy novel at 8 years old.
Wow,
My mom says, I don't know where that came from, but anyway, it was long. It was 800 pages typed.
that's incredible.
And, I was a two-finger typer at that point, and it took all summer, but I got it
Yeah.
done.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I read it and thought, oh, this is garbage. And there's real stuff out there that's much more interesting. And so I started getting into that.
So have you gone back and read that novel, your 8-year-old novel as an adult to
No,
see
I
if there's
haven't.
any, because I wonder if there's some little hidden messages in there. You know what I mean? That you're meant to
Probably.
know now. So I'm
That's a really good point. I have not read that. I will. Yeah. No, it's interesting. I've written things that, like I said, I write for myself a lot. Not just journaling, but actually compositing a book that may or may not ever get published. And it doesn't matter because I'm writing it for me.
right.
Um, it's very interesting, though, to go back and read that and go, oh, didn't pay attention to that. I should have. I'm learning from that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a very good idea. I will do that.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what you find out if you find any, because when we're 8, we have it's almost like being drunk in a way. There's no inhibitions. Like you don't
That's
know
right.
yet that you're not supposed to believe those things, right? So your
That's
mind is
right.
just wide open. So you're just pouring the
Mhm.
stuff onto the page. So I think it'd be really cool to go back. I think it'd be really cool to find out what you find in there and see if
It
there are
would
any little
be.
messages that you're like, holy crap. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'll dig it out, I'll read it, and then I'll send you an email and let you know if I find anything that really stands out and says, hey, pay attention here.
Yeah, I would love for you to do that. That would be amazing.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I'm so excited to hear about that because I bet you'll find something, at least one thing,
I'm
probably
sure
more.
I will. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting because even things I've wrote a year ago, I find things in that really, oh, and then it'll set me off in a different direction, and I end up wandering down that trail for a while. So
Do
it's
you feel
good.
like you channel some of that information? That comment made me wonder.
Yeah, definitely. Because I have a process when I'm really into something. Like I was working with this wonderful young woman. Well, she's in her 50s, but she's an adventure sports enthusiast. Okay, she's climbed the seven summits. She's done all of this.
Wow.
And she had this great positioning concept for a book. And I was working with her on it. I co-wrote it, ended up co-writing it with her. My gosh, I would go to sleep. I would dream the entire chapter I'd work on the next day, get up in the morning, and there it was, just all flowing out of my hands. I didn't even have to think about it. And that's how I prefer to write, is
Yeah.
where it's happening at some other level, and I'm the pencil basically putting it
Yeah.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool. I love that. And I always kind of wonder where exactly is that coming from? You know what I mean? Is it
Uh-huh.
because I feel like it's different places for different people and maybe at different times in your life, like angels sometimes, maybe your guides, maybe universal beings another time, you know.
I
I think
think you're
it's
right. I think it comes from many sources. I love doing it in sleep time. I don't call it dream time. It's sleep time because there's so many other things happening. Physical body is rested and relaxed, but all this other energy is coming through. And when you can just be receptive to that, let it come in and flow out in the morning, my days start early and I'm usually done by 11 o'clock. So it's nice when I'm writing that way. And then I have a chance to sit back and sit with it for a while and see if anything needs tweaking.
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm a writer also, and that's one of the things that I am being drawn back to. I have like I think 3 or 4 manuscripts started right now, and one of
Uh-huh.
them I think I have, I don't know, I can't remember how many words in it I have right now, but I haven't been working on it, and that's one of the things I just got myself an accountability partner because I've got to get some BIC time. You know what BIC time is, right?
Mm,
But in chair.
yeah. Yes, yes, yes. But it's also get in your head. That's where your brain comes in,
Yeah.
is when, I mean, to me, that's a great thing about the brain. It's got such wonderful logic and it's clever and it's creative. If it's flowing through your heart to your brain and then out, you're in great shape. Just as you write, stay in that heart energy.
Yeah.
It does so much more. But if it connects with the brain, that's creative time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely going to do that. I'm
Yeah,
so
it's
excited.
important.
It is. Is there anything else you would like to share with us today before we close this one out?
I have shared more with you on a very personal level. Nobody knows about my cowboy except my family, and now everybody out there. Yeah. It's it's so interesting how you have the ability to be just very much who you are and very comfortable. And that connection with others just comes through beautifully. So I just want to thank you for that. That's truly a gift.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for sharing. I really, truly do appreciate it. And I've enjoyed this conversation so much, so much. It's like it's just been incredible. So
I
I
feel like
really
I've
do
got a long
appreciate you.
lost friend here and we're just reconnecting finally. It's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I
And
love
I
it.
will definitely let you know what I find in that novel. Oh boy, is that going to be fun to read?
That is going to be fun to read. I'm excited for you to go back and read it again. That's going to be cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. If people want to know more about you, is there somewhere they can find you?
Sure, BritElders.com. BritElders.com. I everything is there. If you want to track me on Facebook or LinkedIn or any of those, you can go to that website and it'll take you wherever you need to go and it'll show you what I write and things that I mean, my interests are varied. So it's something that, like I said, if I can learn something from it and then share it with others, I'm doing what I need to be doing.
Yes, that's perfect. I love that. And I will drop your links in the description box below the video so everyone can connect with you with a click. And I just want to thank
Terrific.
you one more time for coming on and talking with me today. I truly, truly
Oh, thank
appreciate you
you.
and your time. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on another episode of Spiritually Speaking. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can get this information out to the whole world. Thank you so much. And I love you all. I'll see you on the next one.